So Glenn Beck is really upset about Obama overstepping his boundaries as president to give amnesty to 800,000 immigrants in the U.S. Now, mind you, 800,000 is not even a drop in the bucket. I looked up the percentage calculator, given that we have about 300 million people in the United States, and what 800,000 would be. That's not even 1%. That's like 0.26 to the 16th power of a percent. That is absolutely nothing. And Glenn Beck is all butthurt because of it, because maybe it is overstepping his bounds as president. That's not his job, that's not what he does, and he is still bound by the law to, reform pre-existing laws, as opposed to, just doing whatever he wants and saying that this person can come in, but this person cannot. You do not deport that person, but you can deport that person. He's not just some kind of management of this huge corporation that is the United States. Well, at least on the surface, because more or less that's what the United States has become. So, essentially, yeah, in that regard, I agree with Glenn Beck that Obama is not a corporate manager. He is a president. He is still bound by the law. He should try to persuade Congress and the House to come to terms with this and reform immigration law. However, immigration law is so fucked up that there really is no choice in the matter. By the very nature of U.S.'s immigration law, you are bound to break it. Every single immigrant cannot depend on following the law to the letter in order to become a U.S. citizen. You just can't do it. As much as I know about immigration laws, it would just be impossible to get around it. It is so saturated in bureaucracy. It is so saturated in ridiculous standards and things they expect you to do and keep up with and records and this and that. And you have to be a certain type of person. They don't want just you to be a law-abiding citizen that's not in drug dealing or not murdered anybody. No, if that were the case, we wouldn't have these problems. The fact is, their immigration policy is so draconian that you would have to be a multi-billionaire to even conceive the idea of getting in. And not even probably because you're a multi-billionaire that can create jobs. It's because with those multi-billion dollars, you can do whatever the fuck you want to. You can bribe all the right people, you can bend the law to your whim, and it's just with that kind of money, the law doesn't apply to you. But it's not really because you're following the law. So, that's the thing. Most illegal immigrants get here because they sneak in, or, they get on a fucking truck with a bunch of drug dealers and shit that let them in because they figure, well, we're going to be selling drugs anyway, sure, hop on. Which is pretty bad that you have to find more compassion and more of a leverage, not leverage, just a favor. It's sad that you can get more favors out of your local drug dealing gang than your average government agency. And it's mind-boggling. So, no, I do not blame the president for going against the woodwork of giving amnesty to 800,000 illegals and saying that some of them should not be deported and things like that. Because the way the immigration system is set up right now, it's impossible to follow it. You literally cannot obey this law. It's that ridiculous. And that is the mentality of moderators. The idea that we are somehow bound to rules that are physically impossible. Being bound by terms of service is impossible. I'm not saying even that it's wrong that you should have to be bound by them, even though it is. I am saying you literally cannot do it. You literally cannot say in one breath that these are the terms of agreement, and if you break them, we can ban you. But then, you turn around and fucking say that these are the terms of service, but we can ban you anyway, for no reason at all. Well then, what's the point of having the terms of service? If you're going to say that you can be a dick and ban people anyway, then why even bother having a terms of service? That's just stupid. It doesn't work that way. That is not lawful. That is not how our legal system works. And YouTube knew that, and that's why YouTube backed down when I threatened to sue them. Because they know I would have leverage in court, and the only reason why I haven't tried to sue the rest of these fucking moderators is because I do not have that time, and I have really nothing to gain out of it. I'm not going to go through the trouble of fucking suing them and just waste my money. I'm not going to put myself in bankruptcy for nothing. But I will put myself in bankruptcy for a huge institution such as Google or YouTube or 4chan or something of that nature. But I'm not going to take, Steve to court and get what? Like a few $100s? Or maybe even Richard the Rapist Bueller. He's got $1 million on him. But the point is that I would have to be doing this constantly, be suing people constantly. And it's just not practical. But they are breaking the law. Their whole system is lawless and just chaotic. You cannot claim that rules apply and then say there are no rules other than my fist. That's what moderatorship comes down to. And that's what our immigration policy comes down to. The fact that you claim there's all these standards and rigid rules that everybody has to abide by. But no, not really. It just comes down to what you feel like doing at the time. What the enforcement officers feel like enforcing. And how they feel about someone else or the other person or whatever. And that's not the way you run a society. That's not the way you act as a dignified adult human being. If you are not prepared to act like an adult, you need to stand the fuck aside and let the adults work. You have no business running a forum if you can't function like an adult. You have no business enforcing the law if you cannot function like an adult. You have no business voting and passing laws if you cannot function like an adult. And the people that support the immigration policy in the United States and the same people that run internet message boards and shit are not adults. They're children. They're fucking stupid, retarded children that need to go sit in the corner and let the rest of us handle these problems. So, that's really all I need to say here, is that Genn Beck is he's right about how the president is technically not following the law. But when the law is corrupt, when the law is ridiculous, when the law is insane and literally unenforceable, what other choice do you have? How can you claim it's even breaking the law at that point when the law means nothing in and of itself? In order for it to mean something, it has to apply equally to all people. In order for it to mean something, it has to have some kind of legal basis. It has to have some ground to stand on. And it does not have that. Just as forums' terms of service do not have that. Because if they did, the moderators themselves would be just as much bound to it as the members. And if that were true, they would have to have banned themselves a long time ago. But they're not going to do that. And, that's why you have legal leverage to sue these people. I don't care what any of these fucking idiots like Atheist Gamer 100 or whatever says. The fact is, they are breaking contract laws. It's fraud. It's harassment. It's discrimination. It's abuse. It's just all sorts of conspiracy and legal mafia shit. It's just criminality. I do not have the vocabulary to spout every single legal word that they're doing, but it's illegal and it's wrong. And there's no reason for it. There's no reason to claim that anything you fucking say on your terms of service means a damn thing when you're not going to enforce it equally on everybody. When you personally are held responsible for what happens on your forum, not the fucking member that posted it, you, the forum owner. You love to talk about how you own the forum. Well then, Steve, you should be in jail for involuntary manslaughter. Because of you, a child killed themselves. So, you should be in jail right now. Richard the Rapist Bueller, you are responsible for people talking about how they play with each other's little peepees and they're underage. You should be held accountable for child pornography. YouTube should be held responsible for all piracy and all trading hands of illegal materials because they're the owners. And the owners are held responsible. If you watch any fucking show, there's this show called Worst Tenants, It is the renters that are held responsible. If you own a home and rent it out, it is not the responsibility of those renting the home to follow the law. It is your responsibility as the owner. That's why you're the owner. That's why you get to rub your nipples and talk about how you own shit and lay down all these ground rules and crap, because whatever happens falls on you. And moderators are not willing to take that responsibility because they're not adults. They're fucking children, and they have no business owning anything. They don't own anything. If they knew shit about ownership, they would back the fuck off. So, that's what I have to say about moderators. That's what I have to say about our terrible immigration policy. That it just has no leverage to claim that it is legitimate in any fashion. The entire immigration system is just one big clusterfuck that we would all be better off just ignoring. Ignore immigration laws. If you have someone you know that's an illegal immigrant, get them in here, get them out of whatever rut they're in, and just treat them like a human being. Don't fucking worry about the law. The law doesn't mean anything because it's so confusing, it's so contradictory, it's so self-defeating that it isn't a law in and of itself. It's just a bunch of words. And any lawyer would tell you the same thing. Because if not, then why do we have all these immigration problems? It isn't merely, some people are coming in here that didn't go through the necessary channels. It's the very foundations of all this hoopla for what? A fucking work visa? No other country goes through that. So clearly it's not the problem of people just don't want to sign some papers and answer some questions to see if they're fit to be a productive citizen. That's not what the issue's about here. The issue's about that these rules are just not meant for mankind. Humankind was not meant to have to bend over backwards and fucking hop around and jump through hoops and shit for anybody. And they shouldn't have to. And if you can't understand that, you have no business anywhere. You have no business in society. You should be the one deported. So, I guess that's all I have to say.